Can you just unmute?
Yeah, I think I'm just unmuted, so I hope that people on Zoom can hear us. Well, thank you all so much for making it to our panel. Very excited to have a wonderful discussion on academic adjacent institutions in Mexico and the unique opportunities that they provide for precisely the types of partnerships that we've seen over the course of this conference. So I hope that this is an engaging conversation that again is very apt to the wonderful tutorial that we just saw. But before that, click here. There we go. So before that, I'm just going to steal a little bit of time for the panel to talk about one collaboration that we've had, particularly with the participation of the academic adjacent organizations that we have present here today, that we've seen at this conference, the Saiph MD4HB Summer of Science. I'll then give an announcement about next year's EAAMO', taking advantage of the context of this panel, and introduce the panelists and then continue the discussion. So just a couple of minutes, I hope that you'll bear with me. So the first thing I want to talk about is that some of you might have seen we've had this wonderful program. It's precisely an example of these collaborations that we can have with institutions that are at the periphery of academia in Mexico, which is the Saiph MD4HB Summer of Science. This is a program which has a goal of supporting indigenous communities in Mexico by having female scholars from indigenous communities present, design, and execute projects of relevance to their communities. They're matched with researchers from MD4HB from the greater EAAMO community, and the culmination is a poster which they presented yesterday at the doctoral consortium. And this is precisely a partnership with multiple government organizations that are parallel to academia. So again, in the context of this panel, we'll see other examples of these roles that can be played. So this is not just the network of research councils, but also U.S. consular staff, embassy, and consular services are great partners for the type of research that we seek at EAAMO'. And to give some examples, we have 20 students from 7 different states in Mexico, you can see in the map, and they represent 11 indigenous communities. From Guanaco, Purete, Chang, Mixteco, Tepehuan, Rarámuri, Mazahua, Zapoteca, Nahuatl, Tenec, Mazateca, and Soque communities. So really a wonderful array of the cultural richness that we have in Mexico. And on topics related to everything that we've seen in the conference on access to public health, preservation of indigenous culture, of implications towards the ecosystem and the policy that's being implemented, I really welcome you to find our students and to talk to them if any of these projects might be of interest to you. So these are just some of the pictures of our students that we have just now. We have 20 students. Unfortunately, there were 3 of our students could not travel here due to the incredible difficulties that it is to get a visa to come to the United States for a conference. And on that point, actually, that's actually one of the reasons for why we have some important announcements for EAAMO' moving forward. But before that, I just wanted to give one final thanks to the people that made this program possible. There are many pieces that came together, but we're deeply indebted to Dr. Rosado Medina, director of the San Luis Potosí Council of Science and Technology, Araceli Suarez Portarroyo, who has helped for an entire career in helping expand the trajectory of indigenous scholars in Mexico through consular services in Mexico, Ibis Perez, who helped us with this process, and many more. But with that note, I guess, well, there was a drum roll on the previous slide, and now the drum roll on the last. I'm having a hard time clicking things. But EAAMO' 2024 is going to take place in Mexico. It's going to take place in San Luis Potosí. It'll take place in San Luis Potosí, where we started these collaborations with the COCOSIT, with the Summer of Science. And in particular, we won't be having issues like we had with the 3 students who couldn't come. We had full funding to come to the United States, but were denied for arbitrary reasons by consular services to help present their work. And so one of the wonderful things about Mexico is that if one has a visa for the United States, one can go to Mexico without an issue. It's going to help us improve access to opportunity. Equity and access is in the name of EAAMO'. So we're very excited about the opportunity that this provides. And again, we have key partner institutions of the Autonomous University of San Luis Potosí, other research institutions such as the EPC and the and we're partnering with precisely these councils of science that we've seen that have helped us with the Summer of Science, with the COCOSIT in particular. And so just these are some pictures of San Luis Potosí, of the historic downtown. That's so just this is the theater, the plaza, and this is the main building of the University of San Luis Potosí, where we'll be having the majority of our events this coming year, and in all probability. So just we're very excited to have hopefully as many people as possible from here participating next year, and having, rather than our scholars coming from Mexico, to hear that we can go to them and learn from these communities and hopefully bridge research to practice that we've been talking about this entire time. Well, anyways, I hope that wasn't too long. Now to the meat of the panel, which is from theory to practice, exploring precisely these partnerships that we can, from adjacent to academia and foster change in Mexico. We have a wonderful selection of panelists here with us today. I'll give a quick introduction for all of them before we can get to the discussion. We have Consul Alberto Fierro-Garza, who is the Consul General of Mexico in Boston. He's been in Mexico for a period of time for over 30 years now. Previously was the head of the Cultural Institute of the Mexican Embassy in Washington, D.C. Was the Consul General in Orlando and St. Paul, and has served as the Director General of Education and Cultural Cooperation for North America, and has a wide career of diplomatic work. We have the great pleasure of having you here with us. We also have Professor Saiph Savage, who many of you might have seen, General Chair of one of the General Chairs of EAAMO', and has a wonderful career. He is currently working at Northeastern as a professor, where he runs the Civic A.I. lab, where she works on public AI tech to empower gig workers, federal governments, industry actors, NGOs, has advised federal governments, has precisely worked at this interface of theory to practice in Mexico and abroad, and has been named as innovator of 35 under 35 by MIT, as one of the 20 leaders of AI in Mexico. We're very happy to have her here talking to us about this interface of work. We have Maestro Raúl Varela, who is currently the Director General of one of these councils of science that I mentioned, the Institute of Innovation and Competition in the state of Chihuahua, who's actually funded. We have 2 students from Chihuahua who are currently here from the communities, precisely because of these partnerships that we have. And it's worked previously in technological improvement of the state, and was the director of the Directorate of High Technology in Chihuahua. So a storied career at this intersection of theory and practice with state support. And finally, we have Dr. Itzé Coronel Salomón, who is currently a law professor at the Autonomous University of Sinaloa, a deputy director of research and public policy for the Women's Secretariat in Sinaloa, and the director of the Women in Science program for the promotion of scientific research at one of these councils of science in Mexico. And so with that, I hope I didn't take too much time, but I hope to now continue to the panel. Thank you all for bearing with me for these announcements just now. Just give me a second. So the first question that I'm going to pose to the panel is, please, I'll pose this generally and then pass the microphone individually so that all of you can answer, is to tell us how your organization is supporting from a practical standpoint projects at the intersection of research and practice that have a tangible impact in local communities. Let me use another microphone. I think we can, that's up, I'll start over there.
Thank you. So some things that my research lab does is that we always aim to, on one hand, publish in top conferences and journals, for example, EAAMO'. And then a lot of the research that we're doing, we always aim to connect with policymakers to help them to understand the research and take action from it. So, for example, recently we collaborated with senators in Mexico, as well as senators actually here from Massachusetts, Senator McKee, so that they could understand, for example, what are the problems that gig workers face and what type of policy recommendations should they create to empower gig workers. And this came from a lot of the research that we have been doing around gig workers and the different harms that they're facing. And so I think it's important to take the time as well to have a research paper to understand the type of impact that it can have on the community, finding the stakeholders that could take action from your research findings so that they can best utilize your research. But I think it's very important that you understand which are the stakeholders that you should connect with and take the time to work with them so that they can best utilize your research.
Mexico has in every embassy and in the 53 consulates that are in the US, there is an office that has to do with promoting education, exchanges, science and innovation. So what we try to do is to connect the academics that are doing things in the place we are, in this case, in Boston, which is very rich with universities and research centers, and we try to connect them with, if they don't have the links with Mexico, to sister institutions in Mexico, where they can have precisely a partnership and they can collaborate on both sides. So the consulates and the embassy, we don't produce knowledge, but what we do is connect. Our work is to connect. Exactly, as we just heard, for example, the U.S. embassy in its education departments in Mexico have been very active in promoting and giving access to Mexican students and researchers to U.S. institutions. Mexico doesn't have the same amount of money as we know as the U.S., but we do have the same purpose that tries to connect.
Well, I'd like to talk a bit about Sinaloa. Maybe some of you or most of you have heard, if you ever heard of Sinaloa, Northeastern Civic Mexico, is from the infamous drug trafficking problem we have there. But I also want to tell you that Sinaloa has 3 public universities. The Autonomous University of Sinaloa recently achieved a full coverture of students. That means that 100% of Sinaloan students who wants to have a study there, they are being accepted. And we have the Autonomous Indigenous University of Mexico. We have a campus there. And we also have the Occident Autonomous University. So in the middle of this, yes, we have this very violent and drug trafficking problem. We are also a state that produces knowledge. For example, Ofelia, that I'm very proud that she is here representing Sinaloa. She arrived from her community, her indigenous community in Oaxaca, to Sinaloa when she was a teenager, when she was 14 years old. And she studied there her high school, university. She is a lawyer. She studied her master's and doctorate. And right now she's doing a postdoctorate at the Autonomous University of Sinaloa. And well, CONFIE, which are, it's a very long name of our science council, but right now, Sinaloa at a national level, we occupy the 17th position out of the 32 states in Mexico, with 773 researchers at the National Research System in Mexico, which is the most prestigious from CONACYT. And that means 1.8% of the national total. And CONFIE, the Science Council, how, regarding to the question, but I wanted to tell you all of this about Sinaloa. We have programs at our Science Council. For example, mimicking the SNI, the Researcher National System, we have the SSIT, Sinaloa System of Researchers and Technologists also, and we give them economic funding for doing research. Maybe it's not a lot, but right now that CONACYT has been in crisis, restructuring programs, most of researchers in Sinaloa are relying on this state council support. And we also have a C network for scientific dissemination, an order, well, lineage, not an order, from our current governor, it's no desk and more territory. So for all public servants. And on science, we have this program, Science in Movement, for children and teenagers, where we, as a science council, we lead, like, we have a science center in Culiacan, in the capital, but we take all of these opportunities for children in communities very, very far away, rural communities, and they have this early scientific vocation promoted. And I'm spending too much of my time, but I wanted to say the 4 axes of CONFIE are the training of human resources, promotion of scientific research, the connection, and business climate. We recently held an encounter between empresarios, business people, and all the researchers for applied research. Because sometimes, well, in Mexico happens that they never meet, so we're doing research alone and never is applied, okay? So we recently held this, and we have these 4 axes and 1 axe that crosses all the 4, which is a perspective gender for promoting women in science, which I am proudly to be at the head of. Sorry.
Thank you, and we'll talk more about the.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Boston University. Thanks, Doctor, for the invitation. It's a pleasure to stay here today, share the comments. I will like talk in Spanish to this more explicit and specific with my ideas and comments. Quiero aprovechar para saludar a todas las mujeres mexicanas que vienen representando sus comunidades. Están haciendo un trabajo extraordinario. Se están convirtiendo, ya se convirtieron en fuente de inspiración. Muchas felicidades.
I want to greet all of the Mexican indigenous female scholars who are here. They're doing a wonderful job representing their communities and are doing a great work for Mexico abroad.
Es un tema muy importante y que de igual manera que dice, puedo hablar desde la perspectiva del estado en el que trabajo, que es el estado de Chihuahua. Hay un gran compromiso por parte del instituto que presido.
It's a relevant topic that I'm able to talk about from the perspective of the government, just as Itzé, and about to talk about this representation that we have from the Council of Science in Chihuahua.
Y en base a eso hay una planeación estratégica por parte del gobierno del estado y en base a los diferentes departamentos que manejamos, hemos estado trabajando sobre todo muy enfocados en el apoyo, por ejemplo, para becas de posgrado, para continuación de estudios.
It's from the upper levels of government, there's a directive to work on these issues of opportunity. There are opportunities being given to students, particularly in the form of scholarships.
Un compromiso también muy arduo por apoyar con equipamiento a las universidades, a los centros de investigación de base tecnológica para que los investigadores tengan áreas dignas y los componentes de elementos necesarios para realizar investigaciones.
And also not just in scholarship, but also in technological materials for technological institutions in the state to provide for their education.
Algo que es para nosotros también muy importante es la divulgación de la ciencia, pero no únicamente a niveles universitarios, sino desde edades muy tempranas para estimular y incentivar también a los niños y jóvenes para que se incluyan en este mundo tan hermoso que es la ciencia y la tecnología.
There's also a significant effort to promote the communication of science at all ages, especially at younger ages, to promote access to science with underrepresented groups in the state.
Y de forma general son muchos los programas, uno que es emblemático que ahorita estamos trabajando, lo acabamos de implementar, es la creación de una plataforma con el objetivo de poder tener una base de datos donde se puedan agregar todos los tecnólogos, todos los doctores, todos los investigadores y no únicamente tener el perfil, sino que incluyan los proyectos en los que están trabajando y que esta base de datos esté disponible para las empresas para que se convierta en una investigación aplicada y puedan colaborar.
So a significant project that's being pushed by the state council right now is to create a database of researchers that are currently in Mexico working on projects of all in STEM from the PhD level and above. And to have this database also be a resource available to the businesses and local entities to promote further connections for on the ground practical collaborations.
Y por último, con el objetivo también de que todos estos temas de ciencia, tecnología e innovación poder llegar a los 67 municipios con los que cuenta el estado. Así que estoy seguro que cada estado estamos haciendo lo que nos corresponde para poder elevar el siguiente nivel en todos estos temas de ciencia.
And finally, that this is an effort being pushed to the 67 municipalities of the state, and that will hopefully foster further participation in science, but also bring the science to the on the ground realities that are faced by communities. Thank you so much, everyone, for the introduction and for the discussion. Now I have some specific questions for our panelists. So I guess we'll begin with Professor Savage. The first is more of a general question of, and we see there is this paradox, this little divide between cutting edge technology and you think like ChatGPT, sitting artificial intelligence, but at the same time we have communities where there's a massive divide where there isn't access to electricity, let alone internet, basic amenities. And so how can we tackle challenges that are faced by communities? And what in your experience, how can we tackle these grassroots challenges when we have these stark divides between the tools and the realities facing these communities?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. And also thank you so much again for inviting me to this. So some of the things that we have been doing in my research lab is on one hand, teaming up with the public infrastructure that exists. So for example, we have been working within rural communities to work within the public libraries, and we utilize the public libraries that do have internet and do have computers as spaces where rural adults can come and learn new digital skills. I think it's also important to identify that there's a lot of opportunity in understanding that the current technology might not be adequate for these populations. And so there's a lot of opportunity in innovation there. Also, for example, my PhD student Kashif was working a lot in creating, digitalizing workers in India, construction workers in India, because due to the pandemic, they weren't able to find a lot of work. And so he found it a great opportunity to innovate by thinking about, okay, how do I help these workers who don't have the technical skills to now be able to digitalize their work and be able to now find work online. And so I would invite everyone to identify that, yes, there is a lot of challenge in that area, but you can also, it's a great opportunity for innovation.
Thank you, and I think that's exactly the type of research that's highlighted at EAAMO'. It makes it a unique academic space. Thank you so much. Ministro Fierro, my question to you is, what role can diplomacy play in addressing technology-related community issues, especially when you're working with academic institutions?
You can turn them off. On purpose. Thank you for the question. As I mentioned before, diplomacy is a very powerful tool to link organizations like universities, research centers, and other academic spaces throughout the countries, throughout the regions. I can mention, for example, 3 interesting things that have happened in a program in the US and Mexico called the bilateral forum for innovation and academic exchange that precisely joined forces on both countries to help researchers from both countries to know each other and to have a lot more exchange. At the consulate here, we have worked, for example, with Harvard and the whole innovation ecosystem in receiving startups that come from Mexico, and they are here several weeks in learning about the strength of the innovation ecosystem. Not only Mexico, and for example, here there are countries that their consulates are dedicated only to promote innovation, like the Netherlands, Switzerland, and Argentina, Chile just had a couple of weeks ago a big day bringing startups from Chile presenting to know about the innovation ecosystem. And then they learn how to pitch their projects, how to present what they're doing. We had more than 8 startups that pitched, and 2 of them were able to get funding enough to open up their enterprises in the US. Not long ago in the summer, Mexico's Secretary of Foreign Affairs invited more than 100 startups to compete in order to be able to come to Boston during the bio convention, and they came and presented their projects, and some of them also got funding. Some of the startups, interesting, for me it was interesting to know that Mexican startups that have already put offices in New York or in California, precisely because they were able to reach funds, and they have to be in the US in order to get those resources. So the type of thing that the embassy or the consulate does is to push and connect. And there are other programs that we don't organize, but we support and we promote. For example, MIT every year has this fantastic project, MIT Solve, where it is an open call for any startups from all over the world that are doing things connecting innovation with social change, with the needs of underprivileged communities. And this year we were very happy to see that 2 Mexican startups were part of MIT Solve and arrived to be finalists. And so in those cases, what we do is promote what they do, precisely to be able to help them connect.
Thank you for. I also should thank you for talking about the proportional, this glue that diplomatic missions can serve between different countries. I think it's a very useful role that can be played. Thank you. So, what I'd say for you, I wanted to ask what are some of the unique challenges that are faced by women pursuing careers in STEM in Sinaloa, and what are the opportunities for pursuing research aimed at improving access to opportunity, given the context of Sinaloa and the work that you do with representation of women in the state?
Okay. Well, there are a lot of challenges for women, specifically in STEM careers. We have an underrepresentation, a historic underrepresentation. And right now, we are trying to close this gap, this gender gap. And also because STEM careers have the highest paid salaries retribution. And historically, women are more bound to study careers that are related with caring, like we have a lot of female studies in nursing and more of social and humanities science and not exact science. And there are statistics that say that when we are in maybe between the ages of 9 and 12, little girls start to lose this interest in mathematics, for example, and we start to feel like insecure. So tackling these challenges, the state of Sinaloa, our current administration is on its 2nd year out of 6. The governor there has been doing some good changes because he is a former president of the university, and he's a former head of the Education Commission at the Senate. So he cares a lot about science and education. They elevated this Women's Institute. They elevated from an institute to a secretary. It's like a ministry on the main structure of the government. I was working there last year as a head of the research and public policy department. Then on our science council, the general director, Dr. Carlos Caran-Quiñones, he had this vision of open a unit of women in science. So they called me and they said, you're going to be the pioneer on this unit, and you're going to achieve what you want, and we were going to support you. So I have this huge commitment. Okay. So what I've been doing since mid-January is to promote early scientific vocations on little girls and adolescents. We've held massive in a big auditorium for a lot of adolescents on the month of March, where International Women's Day. So what's one of the problems why women don't study STEM careers? They don't have representation. So we are promoting visibility. Like they are women in this field. So we invited one of our programs that I mentioned earlier, the SSIT, Sinaloa Research System and Technologies. We invited three professors. One is a doctor in mathematics, another one in chemistry, and another one in robotics. And girls were so amazed. They had so many questions, even like, how do you have a personal life also being a scientific woman? And all of this is one of our main. And also, of course, the women that even with all these struggles right now are doing research and publications and everything, we have a specific economic support for them. And this year, before this year finalizes, we are launching our first Congress with only women researchers in every area. And we expect, this is the first edition in Sinaloa. And okay, we're doing all these things, and we have planned more for next year. If you could help me to, I don't want to miss one of my bullet points, please. Okay. Yeah, I said support women researchers, make visible the work of women scientists. And okay, one of the most important enablers, giving women equal opportunities to pursue and thrive in STEM careers help reduce the gender pay gap, and also improves women's economic security, which foments their independence and saves them for entering in violence circles, and ensures, and this is very important, ensures a diverse and talented STEM workforce, and prevents bias in these fields and products and services that produce. I've said this many times, because a lot of times I get asked, because it's like I said, it's new, this unit. I get asked, even in the Science Council, the law department asked me once. We were making a new reglamento. Yeah, our new rules because we have a new science and technology law that allowed to create all of these new science councils. So they asked me, why does this say at the front of the unit of women in science, there's going to be a female director? Why not director only? And I said, because this is an affirmative action, and it cannot be a man leading the women in science unit, as it cannot be a man directing the Ministry of Women. These are spaces that, with a lot of struggle, we've been gaining So, oh, okay, but I get a lot of these questions, and this is very important. I said, if 50% of the population are women, and we are not having this point of view at the finished products that are the ultimate goal of science, then how do we expect that these final products are aimed for our problems? Okay, and well, on a final and a personal note, I like to say that Ophelia, I want to name her again because she and myself are an example of how these very noble programs at Sinaloa have helped us to be in places that, like here, that we're very, very excited and proud to be here, because we don't come from families with money. We are from middle or low income families, but education is almost free. I was explaining to her how education works here, how a lot of students are always in debt because how scholarships work here, and she was amazed. She didn't know how this worked here, and that it's so expensive to study in the United States. And because, for example, in her case, she was from a small and indigenous community in Oaxaca, and when her sisters first went to Sinaloa, Sinaloa is one of the 3 remaining states in Mexico that has a free housing for students with low income. And we have a lot of students from Chiapas, Oaxaca, that travel because there in Sinaloa is where they can study. And that's a very important and big thing. I had the opportunity with a scholarship from the University of Sinaloa to study my master's in Spain. And I could have never done that without this support. So we're working very hard in Sinaloa and trying to make women more close to success. And finally, sorry, I take a lot of time, but I'm so excited. I always, and I have a picture in my office of notorious RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and I always call this to my students also that are starting to become lawyers, and I always say, we women belong in all places where decisions are being made. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful example having you. Thank you so much. We're so glad to have you here. And Master Raúl, for you, the question I have is, one of the big challenges that we see in Mexico and other places is that federal governments have a mandate, but it's at times detached from the realities of local communities. You work in an organization that works at the state level, which is a very unique position to be in. How can a state level agency better connect both with federal governments, local universities, local communities, and be this unique tool that we've talked about?
Es un muy buen tema para mencionar.
It's a great topic.
Una parte muy importante, independientemente del partidismo o del el partido que pueda estar enfrente, tanto de la federación como del Estado.
A great thing to mention in spite of party lines, both federally and locally at state level.
Es una suma de voluntades y un compromiso con la ciencia y tecnología, y es la barrera que debemos de sobrepasar.
And it's a sum of wills and commitments to science and technology, and precisely that, this is what we use to surmount issues that we see.
Sí, en los últimos años, al menos en el estado de Chihuahua, hemos tenido una reducción de presupuesto en estos temas por parte de la federación, pero sí quiero destacar que cuando lógicamente había más recursos, surgieron proyectos muy importantes para el estado.
And they think lately it's been, as always, an issue of budgets, so they have been cut at the state level, but historically we've had multiple projects that have made use of these resources for a commitment of time.
Sí. Y también quiero destacar parte fundamental en todas las áreas son los departamentos o las áreas de vinculación que juegan un papel fundamental en el objetivo de conectar, de colaborar, y eso permite, en nuestro caso, nos ha ayudado a elevar prácticamente el 400% del presupuesto que tenemos.
So a key part of making the most of this budget is we have departments that specifically work on liaising between different institutions, and this has helped us make a fourfold use of the budget that we have at the state level.
No únicamente con gobierno federal, con gobierno estatal, gobierno municipal,
At all levels of government, state, municipality, federal,
instituciones civiles, universidades,
civil associations, and universities as well.
y esto ha provocado que surjan nuevos productos, que podamos tener una cantidad mayor de recursos para poder aplicarlo en temas de ciencia, tecnología e innovación.
And it's helped us to have a larger amount of relative resources to use on the matters of science, technology, and innovation.
Prueba de esto es que en el estado de Chihuahua estamos por arrancar un proyecto muy emblemático para nosotros, que se va a convertir en un CONACYT estatal.
We're about to kick off what will be for us an equivalent of the Mexico as the NSF, the CONACYT equivalent, and this will be the state equivalent of the NSF.
Que es el Fondo Estatal de Ciencia y Tecnología,
Which is the state funds for science and technology.
el cual lo arrancamos ahora en diciembre, el cual va a también contar con una bolsa muy importante, alrededor de 80 millones de pesos mexicanos.
Which will be kicked off in December, which will have a budget of 80 million Mexican pesos, which probably corresponds to what's not 80 million pesos. Can't do it there. I have box standards.
Con el objetivo de fomentar y apoyar la investigación y la ciencia en el estado de Chihuahua.
With the objective to push science and innovation and technology in the state of Chihuahua.
Y otro ejemplo también pues, muy tangible de estas redes y estas conexiones, pues es el proyecto que en este caso está al frente la RENACETIP, y que gracias a esas conexiones, tanto federales como de las entidades federativas y las invitaciones a todos los estados, podemos estar el día de hoy.
And then so we just wanted to thank you all that we'll continue working with the network of state councils and RENACETIP, which is a large part of the reason for why we're here today. Thank you. Well, thank you so much. I know we have still a bit of time left. So the last question I wanted to make generally to the panelists, and then maybe we can hear a couple of minutes, but also wanted to open up the board of discussion. But my last question is actually based on the fact that we heard that EAAMO is going to be taking place in Mexico next year. And my question is, what opportunities do you think it provides, not just for Mexican scholars, but for scholars here, but also for Latin America and the global south as a whole? What does this opportunity mean for us at the conference and for the academic computer science community more generally? What do you think are the opportunities that we can take from this?
I think it can help, on one hand, to connect with a lot of the scholars from Latin America who maybe because of visa issues, they weren't able to travel, and also connecting with local industry actors from the region. And it's an opportunity to showcase how is technology built in the region, how are we thinking about it, and maybe also helping other global scholars to be able to work together. So we can also think about integrating from other global styles, for example, India, other East Asian countries, to think about what are the differences with Latin America and for example, East Asia, and how do we design for these different regions? Also considering that Mexico doesn't require, for most countries, doesn't require visas. I think it'll open up a lot to facilitate visitations. And I'm very excited about it. I don't know if others want to share.
In fact, if you have a US visa, that's valid for Mexico, so that facilitates travel too.
But unfortunately, Mexico does require visa for many countries. Unless they have visa to the US, to Canada, or the Schengen community. I think it's fantastic that you chose San Luis Potosí. I don't know how you know that it's exactly in the middle of the country. And it's the center for the North American supply chain, in particular, automotive industry. So I think it will give EAMO's participants the possibility of visiting a beautiful city, but a city that has really grown in the last 20 years into innovation. 3M, the big company, I used to be consul in St. Paul, and the headquarters of 3M is in St. Paul, Minnesota, and they opened a big headquarters for Latin America in San Luis Potosí that created probably like 10 years ago an innovation center. And I understand that now there's another center for technological innovation that opened last year by the Technological University of the state. So I think it will be a fantastic opportunity to learn how this supply chain center that has become an innovation center is working. So it will give precise examples of how that reality happens. Thank you.
Well, I think it's gonna be a great opportunity for academic exchange. And also it's really important that, well, yesterday, we were mind-blowing presentations of all of you. CONACYT, for example, more and more has been asking in order to graduate programs belong to this list of quality programs and this means if you have a program in this list of quality programs, your students are gonna get a full scholarship from CONACYT. So all the socials and humanities science are sometimes left behind because they think our research is more only theoretical, not applied, and more CONACYT has been asking to have field research, to apply qualitative and quantitative research. And what EAMO is showing us that how you can apply IA and algorithms to social research is so extremely valuable for in Mexico for research, because we are transitioning to that direction, but not there yet. So it's going to be great.
Thank you.
In this question, I will read the comments and message of the Dr. Rosalba Medina, the next hostess of EAMO'23.
Perfect, thank you. The director of the Potosí, the NSF state chapter, so you can see that facilitated a lot of this.
Mexico is a great country with an academic community of 41,351 researchers, recognized with the National System of Researchers of the National Council of Humanities, Science and Technology, CONACYT, who have great national and international prestige in different areas of knowledge, such as those addressed in this important conference. Our country is large and diverse, and thanks to the activity of the researchers in the different universities and research centers, it is continually hosting national and international academic events. For us, the fact that the EAMO conference is held in Mexico will be an opportunity for us to know our community, as well as the strength and capabilities they can add in the quest to improve equity and access to opportunities for historically disadvantaged and underserved communities. San Luis Potosí is an important state located in the center of Mexico. It has 861 researchers recognized with the National System of researchers of the CONACYT. Is the maximum house of study with 612 researchers. Is the Autonomous University of San Luis Potosí, which this year celebrate 100 years of university autonomy. Stand out nationally for being the university with the largest number of full-time professors with recognition from the National System of Research. The Potosino Institute for Science and Technology Research also stand out nationally with 75% of researchers of the highest level of the SNNI and the highest number of the institution per researcher. Of the 36 research centers the country has, the USSLP and IPCCYT have research and infrastructure that will allow them the host the conference and equality and access inequality mechanism and optimization EAAMO'23, among which stand out auditorium laboratories and the National Supercomputing Center. For this reason, the National Network of Council and Organization of Science and Technology, PRONACYT, and the government of the state of San Luis Potosí, called the Ministry of Education and the Council for Science and Technology, COCOSIT. Thank you for choosing our country to host the conference in 2024, and we are waiting for you in San Luis Potosí.
I remember the one final thing I wanted to say is, and this is fitting with, we just thought it's wonderful tutorial, I cannot emphasize enough, at least in my work, the role that the unique role these state councils play for that initial legwork of the research to practice pipeline. It's an incredible resource, it's an opportunity, I think, to work with this glue between local governments, local communities, with some funding, and I definitely think that that's something that's of interest to our community here. But I wanted to just, I know we're at the time, but open up maybe for just one question or two from the crowd before we break off for lunch. Does anybody have any questions for the panel? And if that's not the case, then I think it's also totally okay since we're at time and I think we might be a little bit hungry, but thank you so much for, oh, there's a question over the back, right?
Muchas gracias por la presentación. I have a question overall because clearly, in terms of the region, we do have a certain dependence towards the US for innovation and research because that's the current status. But I'm curious if these bilateral initiatives that the Mexican government's doing with the United States, is there a push to also doing them with other countries in Latin America to maybe try to strengthen the region itself and the research community that exists? And because of the current conditions, most of it just moved either to the US, Canada, or Europe. So,
Great question. I've been working with Mexico's federal government. So I'm originally from Mexico City, and they added me as one of their experts for a partnership, a global partnership on AI that's called GPI. And that group has been actually very helpful for starting to work with other Latin American countries and thinking about how do we create AI strategies for the region? How do we create AI technology that empower the workers in Latin America? Right now with GPI, we've been working with Argentina. And there, what we're doing is we're understanding the workforces in Mexico and also in Argentina, and then we're designing AI tools for each of the regions and also giving them workshops for the workers. I think, I think the opportunity is in understanding what stakeholders you can work with. For example, this global partnership on AI, there are countries, for example, the US is involved, France is involved, also India is involved. And so it was helpful to connect with researchers from across these different countries, but then finding opportunity to collaborate within Latin America was something I aimed to push for. And so I think it's key to find those collaborations and then find how we can push forward more research in the region. And I love your initiative about working together within Latin America and thinking about how do we innovate together.
I know that, for example, the Alliance of the Pacific, which is Chile, Peru, Colombia, and Mexico, they have worked for many years in being more integrated in terms of trade, but also in academic exchanges and scientific cooperation. Many times Mexico works with countries, for example, the UK is always, or German, they're very interested in promoting and having engineers, Mexican engineers studying all over there. In the case of Latin America, unfortunately, we haven't, other than the Alianza del Pacífico, we haven't done that much. But there are institutions like the Tecnológico de Rey that, as you know, it's one of the biggest universities in Mexico. They do have very important offices and collaboration with some of those Latin American countries.
Sí, respecto al estado de Chihuahua, se están presentando también colaboraciones con la Unión Europea, en este caso.
The state of Chihuahua is also working with the European Union in this case. There are multiple collaborations.
En un programa de regiones, tanto de Latinoamérica como de Europa, con el objetivo de compartir buenas prácticas.
With the objective of sharing good practices.
También actualmente estamos trabajando en colaboración con William Institute de la Universidad de Michigan.
Working with the Williams Institute at the University of Michigan.
En un proyecto de electromovilidad que inició con un estudio de competencia para el estado de Chihuahua, en el cual también ya se están trabajando en los siguientes estados. Y en este caso yo estoy seguro que también el resto de los estados traen iniciativas o programas ya trabajando no únicamente con enlaces directos aquí en Estados Unidos, sino también con otras comunidades tanto de Latinoamérica como de Europa.
And I'm sure that other councils are also working with communities, not only in Latin America, but with Europe as well. Thank you. I think, fortunately, we're at time, but I wanted to, we would please thank our panelists. Thank you so much, and I invite everyone to keep an eye out for our students, these panelists. We have students from San Luis Potosí now acting communities within the state. So please feel free to reach out and find us when we talk about all this. Thank you.